sort of take it away with just a bit of your background, like, growing up where...
Yeah, so South London, born and raised, as you know, Streatham resident, and yeah, grew up in a single parent household. My mother, who's unfortunately not with us anymore, has raised me and my brother, and we were able to, grow in an environment which was very challenging in itself. There was many challenges, from being a young man to having social difficulties at times, and having to deal with different types of conundrums, really. So the challenges of growing up in South London were quite vast, I'd say, quite vast. But nevertheless, definitely try to make best out of your circumstances and try to grow from it. So yeah, I was born in 1987, 33 years young, and growing up in South London, as you probably can identify with, Ash, was just, it was tough, but I do think it was a learning experience as well, in regards to how you manage yourself and how you are able to make the best out of difficult surroundings and scenarios. And coming up in a single parent household, without that kind of father figure there, the narrative is normally that you're supposed to be someone that doesn't necessarily have the skills to grow as a young man. Whereas I kind of looked at it in a different way and said, well, all right, I may not have that father figure around me, but I certainly don't want to use it as an excuse for me to have behavioural difficulties or try and seek different types of agendas with people. So I tried my best to make sure that I stayed on the straight and narrow. Like I knew right from wrong, really. And with that said, it was about implementing that as a young teenager growing up and making sure I stayed on the straight and narrow, really. But not to say I didn't make mistakes, everyone does, but yeah.
Yeah. And how, in terms of, you mentioned about not having a father around, do you think that affected you in any way, or like what were the challenges surrounding that, if any?
It didn't affect me because it was normal. It was normal to not have a father figure around. I think the only thing that I can really remember that really triggering was seeing, my friends with their father figures in their lives. Like when I used to play football, my mum used to take me to train with Crystal Palace as a youth. When I used to go and kick ball down there, and I used to see my friends with their fathers on the touchline, and I always used to think in a very perfect way, it would be lovely to have a father figure cheering you on, just from a male perspective. But I can't say it affected me, because at the same time, it was what I knew. It's what I knew. It's what I knew was normal. And I think with that, when you grow up in these types of environments, it is your normal, despite what society says. We should have a 2.5 household. You should have your mum, your father there, and the kids and stuff. So to some degree, I kind of like it was normal for me. It was normal, and I just decided to get on with it. Like, do you know what I mean? He wasn't around for whatever reason, and we moved forward from there.
Did you have any sort of male role models in your life, or was it just a case of that you didn't?
No, I certainly had male role models. Your father being one of them. Often, just grasping. Often I would grasp skills that I see in other men. Your father, an example of that, a man that goes out, works hard, is a provider for his family, set a foundation for his family to grow from and to prosper from. So with that, it was an example for me. Or even I've got other friends' fathers that I often would be in their company sometimes and sit down and really listen to what they've got to say about their stories growing up as a young youth in London and growing up and trying to make something of themselves. And I think I just kind of like picked from all those types of characters, always gravitated towards them, you know? So yeah, for me, that's where I kind of had those kind of figures. It wasn't a set figure. It was more so that I saw traits in people, and I just took what I could for myself, if that's be said, yeah.